Rayman 3 is a game that needs no introduction, so I'm not going to give one. But before I start listing off things I don't like about this game, I will give the disclaimer that this is actually one of my favourite games of all time, and definitely my favourite in the franchise. But yep, let's get right to it. So there's really nothing much wrong with the Fairy Council. It's a bog standard tutorial level, and it does the job well about teaching you how to play the game. However, there's two very minor gripes I have. The first thing is that this voice line here
How long are we gonna go around in circles? I'm gonna end up barfing.
is supposed to play when you loop around in a circle at the beginning, aka you don't grab the 6 LOMs or whatever they are. But it just naturally plays on its own, like, when you're not actually going in circles, but yeah, that's just a very minor thing. But the biggest issue I actually have with the Fairy Council is a bit of a pacing issue with the cutscenes and the story. So here we see the main plot element of the story actually start with Glowbox swallowing Andre, but the thing is that this cutscene probably should have played a bit earlier because, as we can see, Rayman is just sitting there in the corner, and when we cut back to actually playing the game, Glowbox is completely gone. What I would do to fix this is make this cutscene play a bit earlier in the level, aka when you're down here, so it doesn't give the implication that we, like, go past Andre and he's, like, coming up from behind us, because that really doesn't make any sense. And probably put some murals on the wall behind so that you can know that this is, like, a specific area where something is going to happen, and it's not just, like, a random wall. Basically something that lets you know that you're going in the right direction, and or the fact that this in fact happened here. So that Glowbox, you know, he was right here when that happened. But yeah, other than those two minor things, Fairy Council is all well and good, because, as I said, it's just a tutorial stage. Clearly, Forest, on the other hand, is a level that I think has a really big issue with it, and that's the fact that the level kind of feels very samey to itself. Now, I'm not saying that the atmosphere has to change between each little segment of the level, but I am saying that it should definitely feel different gameplay-wise, and really, clearly Forest is kind of a slog as for what it is. But my biggest issue is, of course, the lack of enemy variety in this level. Now, before I go on a whole big tangent about this, I'd like you to take a guess as to how many Hoodmonger private first classes there are in this stage. In case you don't know, that is the proper name of the basic hoodlum enemy, the brown one. So as you enter Clearly Forest, you get into a brawl with 2 of them. Okay, pretty easy. Then you do some bit of platforming, and then you go up the meadow screw, and then you find, guess what, 2 more. And then you get a new power-up. Then you fall down to the segment with the waterfall, and you have to fight off 4 more. And after the waterfall segment with Glowbox, you go to the next stage and instantly enter a room that has 6 more of them in it. Now, this probably wouldn't be so much of a tedious thing if you actually had like a red power-up to use against them, but no, you don't have any power-ups other than the Whirlwind Fist, which is really not a combat power-up. After that, we go to the segment that has the Lockjaw power-up, the blue one, and we fight off, guess what? Yep, it's only actually 1. And if you're keeping track, that's 15 already. But I will give credit to the game, if you fall down here, you can actually fight 1 slapdash, so count 1 for that. After the Lockjaw segment, we have yet another combat zone, this time with 8 Hoodmonger private first classes, which I'm just going to refer to as Hoodmongers now because I'm going to say that name a lot. There's also 1 slapdash here for some reason if you care to kill it. Reaching the next stage, we come to the Shock Rocket minigame, and with it, a new type of enemy, the Soldier. Well, it is basically just the private, but you know, extra damage, a bit more dangerous. We're not going to count him because he is technically a different enemy. However, in the room after this, there is in fact 1 Hoodmonger. And not long after, we're introduced to the Hood Boom, but in order to defeat the Hood Boom, we're first going to have to kill 3 more of these Hoodmongers right here and right now. So we can get up here and go to the zone where it has it, to then fight 2 more Hoodmongers. In the next room, after you've destroyed the Hood Boom, you find this big box area, and it has 3 Hoodmongers in it. And if you thought that wasn't enough, don't worry, in the very next room there's 2 more as well. But yeah, thankfully after that, that is basically the end of them in Clearly Forest, because all there is the Mecha Legs boss fight, which has none in it. You kill a bunch of soldiers, but it's basically not enemies, it's more of just a challenge because they can't actually hurt you. And just like that, we get to the doctor's office. Just kidding, there's 3 more at the end in case you haven't actually had enough of them yet. So yeah, if you think that Clearly Forest's combat sections are a bit samey, maybe it's because they added 37 Hoodmonger private first classes to this level. This really is a bit too much. And yes, I do understand that it's probably because they didn't want to introduce too many different enemy types at the start of the game, but you probably could have included a few extra slapdashes in place of enemies. Yes, I know they're basically cannon fodder, but 37 of these guys is a bit too much for a level, in my opinion. Now, as we enter the Bog of Murk, you're gonna hear something from me that is kind of blasphemy considering how I act towards the OST of this game, which is, it's basically perfect. yes, an issue with the audio and music for this game. Mostly due to how the dynamic music kind of works. So the issue here is actually the fact that every time you go into the water, it plays the kind of drowning theme, aka a chaotic little mix, because there's a piranhas in the water. It's not good. But the issue is that when you get out of the water, it starts replaying the music of the Bog of Murk, aka it doesn't keep your position. Now, this happens in a different part of the game, that being the Desert of the Kanaran in the zombie chicken area, but that theme is so short, and it loops, so that you don't even really notice it that much. But yeah, here, it's a bit of a problem. And obviously we're going to talk about Razov, because he's just kind of a boring and tedious boss. So I like the idea of the Razov fight. You go around his house and you try and fight him, and he tries to fight you, and he tries to get the sniping positions on you. But in reality, it's just boring and luck-based, kind of. In fact, I learned that the best way to do this is to just, instead of actually chasing him around and fighting him, you go to the room at the left, you wait until you stop hearing his voice, and then you go back to the foyer and you can just hit him twice if you're lucky. And then, once his health is low enough, he will not spawn there anymore, and then you finally just go and get rid of him. Yeah, this fight kind of sucks, but I can't honestly think of anything that would make it more interesting. Other than the fact of, like, you could get him to actually move between rooms, which I don't know if that was actually possible on the PS2. Maybe it was, but that could also lead to situations of him just not running into you at all. Now, what I say about this next boss fight is also going to carry over into the Land of the Living Dead, and that's that the camera can be a bit wonky at times. Sure, it's not Super Mario 64 or anything like that, but there are parts of levels where the camera becomes very, very janky, such as the secret area that has the green gem in it in the early parts of Land of the Living Dead Segment 1. But it also appears in normal gameplay, that being such as this fight against the veterans and the hood boom here, where the camera is tied to this hood boom, and just, it's awful. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it a, oh, this is the fight's view from the enemy's perspective who's taking a vantage point, but in reality, it's really annoying. I also had some issues in the tower when I was trying to lock onto enemies. I don't know if that's consistent, but it happened here, so it's going in this list. But yeah, mostly this affects people who are going for high scores, and while that is not really a selling point for a bunch of people, it is for me. Following Land of the Living Dead is the Desert of the Kanaran. Now, these enemies are big and scary and they deal a lot of damage, but the real issue I have with this section is some of the hitboxes. You see here me messing around with this delicious melon attempting to throw it at this Kanaran, and I get hit because the hitbox of it is just massive. You can also see me getting hit here in the reflux fight from seemingly nothing? Do you know what hit me here? This happened twice in this fight and I have no idea why, but yeah, just a bit of hitbox jank. Probably easy to miss, but yeah, what are you gonna do? Also unrelated, but while screwing around I managed to fall through the world. I mean, I was screwing around intentionally, so yeah, that's just something to take notice of, because I've never seen that before. Now, the longest shortcut has a bit of a problem with the mechanic in the game, and yes, this can be applied to other levels, but this is the easiest to show off. So in case you didn't know how combo mode works in this game, for every 5 gems you get an additional multiplier to your score in combo mode. This is important. This is why you'll see in high scoring runs people pick up all of the low value gems before picking up the high value ones. For example, the greens. The footage you're seeing is me getting a pretty decent combo, comboing the shoe, getting a double power up, collecting all the small gems, and collecting 2 big green gems for a lot of points. This results in over 25,000 points within the first room of the longest shortcut, which is about half the amount of points you'll get in total for this level. But it's actually possible to do worse by doing better. How so? Well, just take a look at this footage I recorded about 2 years ago. So if you manage to get the Omega Nut combo, you know, by basically cheating or getting incredibly lucky, comboing all of the red gems in this zone here, then comboing it into the shoe, and then after you get the shoe, you go and collect all of the points, you actually get less because it doesn't count the big green gems in combo mode because the value of them would be too high. This is an actual issue that probably should have been, you know, caught in testing. So what can I say about the boat that hasn't been said a million times before? Well, let's talk about this little radar here down the bottom left. So supposedly this tracks where the enemies are so that you can shoot them with the cannon, you know, before they actually hit you, but they always get close to you and manage to usually hit you before it even shows up on the radar, so the whole radar thing is kinda pointless. It's like a secondary at most. In fact, this is why the main strat that people use is just run around the front of the ship, spamming the cannons and only going to the back when they appear on the radar. But yeah, another flaw with the boat is the fact that sometimes you hit the cannon twice and it tries to shoot the same enemy twice, which is pointless because they only have like one hit worth of health from the cannon, so why? Couldn't you have just like coded it so that once it's done it's like, oh yeah, it's going to hit that, don't need to do it again. But yeah, other than the boat, the Summit Beyond the Clouds is kind of a pretty good level. No real issues with it other than this one invisible enemy here. Hoodlum Headquarters by and large is a pretty good level, in fact. I mean, most of the levels in this game are. But the issue I'm having is with how usually this game lets you have fun with solutions sometimes. This is not one of those cases. For instance, I was able to use the shock rocket to basically hit the cage that was here behind this little curtain over here that you're supposed to do normally by dodging a bunch of obstacles, but it actually just doesn't have a hitbox down here, or there is an invisible wall that's stopping you from doing it. I mean, if a player thinks about doing this, then you should probably just give it to them, not, like, ruin their fun. Come on, man. The same with immediately after it, I'm trying to get this one hoodmonger to shoot this one enemy that has the shield, because, hey, hoodmongers and other hoodlums can just shoot each other for some reason, they have hitboxes, it's fun, it's, like, a good part of the game. But here, the enemy just doesn't have a hitbox, so that doesn't work. It's a shame. Really sad. And finally we reach the Tower of the Leptus. Now, other than this weird statue that you need to look upwards in order for it to actually start moving, there is very few issues with this level. But one of them is the fact that at the end of Hoodlum HQ, we had a escape from lava / dangerous liquid rising cliche from video games. This is fine to have in your game, you know, that's why a lot of things do it. But this level alone has two of them. There's this one here, which is rather unremarkable, and there's this one here with the balloons, which is actually quite fun, so they really should have cut the first one and just left the second one in. It would have been enough, and it wouldn't overdo itself. So you'd be right to assume that I'm going to complain about the ship segment, and I am. But I'm not actually going to complain about this ship segment, I'm going to complain about the one at the final boss. Now, you may be asking why complain about one and not the other? Well, two main differences. One of the reasons being is that you don't actually have to mash the button while shooting in the first ship segment. Mashing buttons gets really annoying when you have to do it multiple times, and in the reflux fight you can potentially have to do it 4 times. It is very annoying to have to do this more than, like, twice. And the second reason is that, well, the controls get inverted vertically for your second encounter with this. On the original, if you aimed up, it would aim up. If you aimed left, it would aim left, so on and so forth. But in the final fight, other than the fact that it also gives, like, terrible recoil whenever you're shooting, you have to aim downwards to shoot upwards, which is kind of bad considering the fact that you would have learned that up is up and down is down in the previous time you used it, which is pretty fresh in your memory. It was in the same level. It was in fact, like, right before the boss. But yeah, that's a pain. Also, as I said, yes, this boss can sometimes take 4 cycles. Here's an instance of me recording this, and on the 3rd phase, as in the 3rd time he did it, he shot out 2 hoodlums, which just shows how close you can get. And yes, I had to do this and shoot 2 hoodlums in order to actually finish the fight. Don't know why it didn't just give it to me, but yeah, that's kind of really annoying. Also, it seems Reflux decided to keep a few of his broken hitboxes from the first fight. But yeah, with that, this video is basically over. I hope you enjoyed listening to my perspective on things. Obviously, I still love this game, otherwise I wouldn't have played through the entirety of the game to grab footage, I would have just snagged it off someone else on YouTube. But yeah, it's still a really good time. If this video does well, i.e. likes or comments and views and whatever, I might make one for specific things that I really like about this game, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll maybe see you later. Till then, goodbye.